In one ancient Greek kingdom, during a time when the gods still walked among mortals, three beautiful princesses once dreamed of what their future husbands would look like. "My husband will be very rich," said the first. "He will cover me with the finest silk and the most beautiful jewels." The second smiled. "Mine will be a famous general, and he'll show me off as his greatest achievement." Then they turned to the youngest. "And you, Psyche, what will your husband look like?" "All I want," Psyche replied softly, "is a love that will lift my spirit." Her sisters burst out laughing. So cheesy. Though all three were beautiful, Psyche was by far the most stunning. Her beauty drew everyone's gaze and filled her sisters with envy. People from faraway kingdoms traveled great distances just to see the famous princess for themselves. "Behold," they said, "the most beautiful creature ever to walk the earth." Soon, Psyche was worshipped almost like a goddess. The tributes once offered to Aphrodite, the goddess of beauty, were now being given to the young princess instead. The goddess, furious at being neglected, watched from her empty temple as crowds followed Psyche in admiration. Offended and jealous, Aphrodite called upon her son, Eros, the god of love and passion. "Dear son," she said, "this mortal dares to think she is equal to the gods. She must be punished. Use your arrows to make Psyche fall deeply in love with the most hideous creature you can find." That night, Eros descended upon the royal palace and quietly entered Psyche's room. She was asleep in her bed. Out of curiosity, Eros leaned close to see if the stories about her beauty were true. The moment he saw her, he was overwhelmed. Psyche's beauty was beyond anything he had ever witnessed. "It's no wonder my mother is jealous," he thought. Her beauty could outshine even the loveliest nymphs and goddesses. Then, in an unexpected moment, Psyche turned over in her sleep. Startled, Eros lost his balance and accidentally pricked himself with his own arrow. Instantly, the god of love fell hopelessly in love with the very mortal he had come to curse. Because of his newfound love, Eros could not bring himself to carry out his mother's cruel command. Unaware of all that had happened, Psyche continued her life as usual. But soon, something strange became clear. Time passed, and although she remained the most beautiful and adored woman in the land, Psyche was still unmarried. Meanwhile, her sisters had already found noble husbands. "Psyche," one of them teased, "you've always been adored by everyone, yet you're still single. Our sister and I are happily married to the noblest of men." "Don't worry, my daughter," the king said gently. "Your beauty may be overwhelming to some men, but surely soon a suitor worthy of your heart will appear." Yet deep down, the king was worried. He couldn't understand why no one sought Psyche's hand in marriage. He didn't know that it was Eros himself preventing any man from falling in love with her, for the god of love had claimed Psyche's heart for his own. Desperate for answers, the king traveled to the oracle of Delphi. Within the temple, through the voice of the great Python, the god Apollo spoke. "Your daughter will marry a wicked, winged being who delights in wounding both mortals and gods. The princess must be left on the edge of an abyss, dressed in bridal attire, to be delivered to this terrible creature, and her union with him will bring her death." The word struck the king with despair. Unknown to him, Apollo's prophecy was actually referring to Eros himself, the god of love, who Apollo secretly despised. Eros had once caused Apollo to suffer unrequited love, and this prophecy was Apollo's way of taking revenge. The king left the temple in tears, unable to bear the thought of losing his favorite daughter. But Psyche's jealous sisters urged him to obey the oracle. "You must sacrifice Psyche," they insisted, "or you'll anger the gods and bring ruin upon our kingdom." Heartbroken, the king told his daughter of her tragic fate. "My beloved child," he said sorrowfully, "by the will of the gods, we must deliver you to a dreadful destiny. Your beauty has become your curse." And so, Psyche was led to the edge of a great abyss in a bridal procession that looked more like a funeral march. Hearing her parents' cries, Psyche spoke through her own tears. "Why do they mourn my fate now? Not long ago, they were proud to see me adored as a goddess, though they knew it was a sacrilege against the divine. Now, carry me to the cliff, and let me meet the fate that awaits me." Left alone at the brink of the abyss, Psyche waited for her monstrous husband to appear. Suddenly, a soft wind began to blow around her. It was Zephyr, the god of the west wind. Gently, he lifted Psyche into the air, carrying her away from the cliff and toward her mysterious destiny. When she awoke, Psyche found herself in an enchanting paradise. Flowers bloomed everywhere, and the air was filled with a sweet fragrance. Before her stood a magnificent palace made of the purest white marble, gleaming in the sunlight. Psyche slowly climbed the steps, her heart pounding as she stepped into the unknown. Psyche climbed the stairs leading to the entrance of the palace, her eyes wide with wonder at the wealth that surrounded her. Everywhere she looked there was striking luxury. Gold and silver covered the adornments, and the palace itself seemed to glow. As she stepped inside, a soft voice drifted through the air, though she couldn't see where it came from. "My lady," it said, "everything you see now belongs to you, and we are at your disposal to assist you in anything you wish." There was no one around her, but Psyche realized these were invisible servants. They bathed her, served her meals, and played and sang beautiful songs for her. "Now you shall go to your room and wait for the arrival of our master," the voices said. "And what is your master like?" Psyche asked. "They say he's a monster. Some have called him that," the unseen voices replied. "But in truth, he is not evil, only volatile." Later in her room, Psyche sat distressed, waiting for her fate. Nyx, the goddess of the night, had already cloaked the sky completely in darkness. The room was utterly black. She could see nothing at all. Then she felt something slip through the window. A presence. A breath on her neck. Her new husband had arrived. The young woman tensed, bracing herself for the worst, not knowing what would happen. But against all her expectations, that night was one of sublime pleasure. Her husband treated her with tenderness, love, and affection. When morning came, he was gone. Because of the darkness of the night, Psyche hadn't caught even a glimpse of her companion. During the day, she wandered the palace, exploring its wonders, yet her thoughts were fixed on when she would next see the mysterious creature who called himself her husband. Night after night, he returned to her, and the two shared their love countless times. But one night, Psyche couldn't hold back her curiosity any longer. "My love," she said, "why do you always hide in the shadows? I want so much to see who you really are." "Is it the love we share enough?" he answered. "All I ask is that you do not try to see me in the darkness. We are equals. I'm sorry if I upset you. That was not my intention." Ashamed, Psyche decided to respect his wishes and never again touched on the subject. Time passed, and though she was deeply happy, she began to miss her family. "Husband of mine," she pleaded, "I miss my family so much. It hurts my heart to know they think I am dead. I beg you to let me visit them." Eros, for it was he, agreed. In his heart he thought, if she returned after being released, it would be the ultimate proof of her true love. "My beloved daughter," her father cried, "I thought I would never see you again." Her family was shocked to see her return. They had believed she was lost forever, and she returned in triumph, adorned in the most beautiful jewels, looking like the richest of queens. "How is your life with your mysterious husband?" they asked. "It couldn't be more wonderful," Psyche said. "He is sweet and does everything to please me." But her jealous sisters did not believe her, even as she handed out beautiful gifts to her relatives. "Everything about our sister is always too much," one whispered. "I don't think everything she says is really that gorgeous." "You don't have to believe me," Psyche replied. "Come with me, and you can see for yourself." Zephyr, the west wind, carried Psyche and her sisters to the heavenly palace. When they arrived, they saw with their own eyes that everything Psyche had described was true. But this only deepened their envy. The sisters plotted to poison Psyche's happiness. "I know it all seems wonderful," they said, "but don't you remember what the oracle foretold? You married a monster, and he will cause your death. Do this when you sense he is sleeping. Take a knife, light a lamp, and after you see the monster, cut his throat." When her sisters departed, their words had already planted seeds of doubt in Psyche's heart. That night, as her husband slept beside her, Psyche rose. She took a knife and a small lamp and crept toward the bed. But as she held the light over him, she froze. This was no monster. This was a young man of divine beauty. Her breath caught. She realized only a god could look like this. She leaned closer, entranced by his face. But in her trembling hands, a drop of hot oil spilled from the lamp and fell onto Eros's chest. He woke with a start from the burn and saw Psyche standing there with the knife. "How could you be such a fool?" he cried. "Is this how you repay my love, by thinking I'm a monster and plotting to slash my throat?" "Forgive me, my love," Psyche pleaded. "I know I made a mistake, but we can make this right." "I only asked you one thing," he said bitterly, "and you couldn't do it. Now you'll never see me again." With that, Eros spread his wings and flew out the window. Psyche leapt after him, but she couldn't reach him. She fell to the ground. Her injuries were light, but her heart was shattered. Psyche lay on the ground, utterly broken. When her sisters heard that Psyche had survived and returned, they rushed to the cliff, hoping the west wind would carry them away as it once had carried their sister. Zephyr began to blow, and the sisters leapt into his invisible arms, but he did not catch them. Instead, they fell from the cliff to their deaths. Meanwhile, poor Psyche devoted herself to helping with the tasks of the goddess Demeter's temple, but she never stopped thinking about her lost love. In Demeter's temple, Psyche worked tirelessly, completing every task with perfect dedication. Yet no amount of labor could quiet the ache in her heart. Seeing her sorrow, the kind goddess took pity on her. "Poor Psyche," Demeter said softly, "I feel sorry for your pain. So I give you this advice. Go to Aphrodite's temple and humble yourself before her. Offer yourself to her with humility and submission. Only then might you soften her wrath, and perhaps win back your love." "Who am I," Psyche whispered, "to ignore the advice of such a wise and benevolent goddess?" With courage renewed, Psyche made her way to the temple of Aphrodite, the goddess of love, and her former mother-in-law. She had no idea what kind of welcome awaited her there. As soon as she entered, Aphrodite's voice echoed through the chamber, filled with scorn. "What is the most obnoxious and disloyal creature ever to walk the earth doing in my temple?" Psyche fell to her knees. "I humbly throw myself before the goddess of love and put myself at your service, seeking forgiveness." "Forgiveness?" Aphrodite scoffed. "Do you believe you can be forgiven so easily after stealing my honors and wounding my son?" "I will endure anything," Psyche said. "I will do whatever it takes to earn even the smallest chance of your forgiveness and to win back my love." Aphrodite's eyes narrowed. "To purge your sins will be painful," she warned. "You will perform the hardest tasks, ones that may cost you your life." "I will do anything," Psyche said again, her voice steady. And so Aphrodite began to burden her with cruel and impossible labors. For her first assignment, Psyche was sent to a grain barn overflowing with seeds, barley, millet, wheat, poppy, lentils, and beans, all mixed together. Aphrodite ordered her to separate them into their kinds before nightfall. The task was so immense it would have overwhelmed even mighty Hercules. But unseen, Eros watched from above. Still in love with her, he quietly summoned an army of ants to help. The tiny creatures swarmed the floor, sorting the grains into perfect piles. In record time, the work was done. When Aphrodite returned and saw the task completed, her anger flared. "I don't know how you managed this so quickly," she hissed. "But the next one won't be so simple." For Psyche's next trial, Aphrodite ordered her to fetch a handful of golden wool from the dangerous sheep that grazed by the riverbank. These were no ordinary sheep. They had golden fleeces and were known to devour humans. But Psyche watched carefully and saw that as the beasts passed through a narrow trail of thorny plants, pieces of their golden wool caught on the branches. When they moved on, she gathered the soft golden threads from the thorns and brought them to Aphrodite. "Well done," the goddess said grudgingly. "But don't think it's over." For the third task, Aphrodite demanded a jug of water from the source of the river Styx itself, an impossible mission, since the river sprang from the top of a steep mountain guarded by deadly dangers. But Zeus, watching from above, took pity on Psyche. He sent his eagle to collect the water from a sacred source and deliver it safely into Psyche's hands. Once again, the young woman presented the completed task to Aphrodite. The goddess sighed in frustration. "I admit," she said, "that you have managed these tasks by winning the mercy of the gods. But your next job will have a price that only you can pay." Her voice grew dark and cruel. "The trouble you have caused me has exhausted my beauty. So, I demand you go to the kingdom of Hades and ask Queen Persephone to fill this box with a portion of her beauty. Bring it back to me, so I may restore my splendor. Do this, and you shall have my forgiveness and my blessing to reunite with my son again." Psyche's heart sank. She knew now that this was a death sentence. She saw no way to enter the underworld except by taking her own life. Standing atop a tall tower, she prepared to throw herself off, but then a soft, ghostly voice whispered to her. "There is another way," it said. "I will tell you the path, and how to overcome the obstacles. Charon, the ferryman, and Cerberus, the three-headed dog. But when you return, under no circumstances must you open the box." Following the guidance of the mysterious voice, Psyche found a hidden cave that led down into the underworld. After a long and terrifying descent, she reached the banks of the Acheron River, where she met Charon, the silent ferryman of souls. "I serve the goddess Aphrodite," Psyche said, "and I have an audience with Queen Persephone, who awaits me." She handed Charon 2 coins as payment, and he ferried her across the dark river into the shadowy domains of Hades. There, Psyche presented herself before the rulers of the underworld, King Hades and Queen Persephone. "What does a mortal do in our realm?" Hades asked. "I am here in service of Aphrodite," Psyche replied, bowing low. "She asks that you fill this box with some of your beauty, so that she may restore her own." Persephone looked at her with compassion and granted her request. She filled the box and handed it back to Psyche. The box was now much heavier, and Psyche began her journey back from the underworld. As she made her way toward the surface, she encountered Cerberus, the three-headed dog guarding the exit. Remembering the guidance of the mysterious voice, she had brought with her barley and honey bread soaked in a sleeping potion. She offered it to the beast, and as soon as Cerberus devoured it, he fell into a deep sleep. With the guardian subdued, Psyche continued her way toward the world above. As the boatman began his return trip across the river, Psyche caught sight of her reflection in the dark waters. She barely recognized herself, exhausted, pale, and worn from all the trials she had endured. Still, she pressed on, climbing steadily toward the surface, determined to complete her final task. Holding the box close, Psyche thought, "This box is nearly overflowing with beauty. It won't hurt to take just a little bit for myself. When I see my love again, I want to look radiant and beautiful for him." But the moment she opened the box, a thick black mist poured out. It wasn't beauty. It was a deadly sleep, a curse of lifeless darkness. The mist enveloped her, and Psyche's body grew cold and still as life slipped away. Far away, Eros, feeling the sudden silence of his beloved's heart, knew something terrible had happened. He flew to her in an instant and found her lying motionless, her skin as pale as marble. Thanatos, the god of death, was already beside her, waiting to claim her soul. But Eros refused to let her go. Using his divine powers, Eros lifted the dark mist from Psyche's body and sealed it back inside the box. Slowly, color returned to her cheeks, and her eyes fluttered open. When she saw Eros holding her, she whispered softly, "My love, I feel that now I can finally look into your eyes without fear of losing you." They embraced and kissed passionately, their love stronger than ever. Then Eros gently told her, "Finish what you started. Take the box back to Aphrodite." While Psyche fulfilled her promise, Eros flew to Mount Olympus to plead with Zeus himself. He begged the king of the gods to persuade Aphrodite to forgive Psyche and bless their union. Zeus, moved by their love, agreed. Soon after, Eros led Psyche to Mount Olympus. All the gods awaited her arrival. Zeus stood before her, and with Aphrodite's reluctant but genuine blessing, he offered Psyche the nectar and ambrosia, the divine foods that grant immortality. Zeus spoke solemnly, "Psyche, Your path has been thorny and filled with trials, but you have proven your heart and spirit. You are now immortal and free from the chains of human ignorance. The bond between you and your husband shall never be broken. Your love will endure for all eternity. From the union of Eros and Psyche was born a daughter, Hedon, the goddess of pleasure and joy. And so their love, once tested by pain and fate, blossomed into eternity, unbroken, undying, and divine.